Yeah, hello, welcome back to my channel. Good morning, to all returning viewers and subscribers. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the love. And if you are new here, this is my channel. My name is Meshak, and welcome to my channel. All right. So, today we are going to be looking at DAX, all right, or DAX functions. All right. Now, when we say DAX, that is more or less like a code in Power BI, all right, that helps us to derive certain information or certain outcomes, right? So in simple terms, that is DAX. It's just some code that we input, or some write types that we input in the function bar that is given. We understand so that we are able to perform certain you know functions to derive certain informations, right, that we may not have access to at a particular point in time. All right. So before we begin, so this series is going to be divided into three or two, three or two, because I don't want to make everything so much. And so yeah, we'll be delving right into it. So in today's lessons, we'll be looking at aggregate functions using DAX. So we'll be looking at the sum, count, average, counter, extent, all of this. And we might probably do a little bit of the if using the if function as well. Now, one thing I would like us to keep in mind, or I'd like us to understand, and I've written it here because I don't just want to say it. I want you to read it and then keep this in mind. To read it and understand it your own way before we get into it, so not to get you confused. Okay, and so I have a disclaimer here. Say note: in Power BI, measures and columns are used for different purposes. Calculated columns perform rule-level calculations stored in the data model, while measures are dynamic calculations performed at query time. And so what I'm trying to say is that in using DAX, there are two main things that we will have to keep in mind. One is the fact that we might probably be using what we call calculated columns, right? And then the second one is that we might be using measures. All right, so I need to understand as and when we are going to be able to use calculated columns, and as and when we should use what we call measures. All right, not understanding this is going to really affect how you perform your DAX functions, and so it's important that you understand that we have something called calculated columns and we have something called measures, and they both serve different purposes. All right, I hope that is understood. Okay, good. So if that is fine, let's move on to today's discussion. Let's get ready. And so, yeah, so this is our Power BI, and this is the sheet that we'll be working with, right? So let me show you. So this is it, all right? So we've already done the data cleaning, all of that, but this one doesn't have the data cleaning. You can find the data cleaning in one of my videos, all right? Where I have the data cleaning using Power Query and Power BI, part one, and I also have a part two of it. So yeah, we are not going through the data cleaning. We are just jumping right using DAX. All right. And so this is our data set. And like I said, today we are going to be focusing solely on the sum, count, average, and all of that. Sum X and count X. Okay. So what is the sum? Just like in Excel. All right. Sum is simply the summation of a particular column, or if you want to sum up a particular row, you want to add the items in a row to derive a particular result. All right. Or probably you just want to sum up a particular column. So this salary, let's say we want to find the total of all of these items. All right. Just all of these items. So we can use what we call the sum. All right. And then we also want to find probably the total of all of this column. You can again use what we call the sum. That's if you want to find the total. Okay. So we have sum, we have average, we have the count, we have mean, we have max, and so if I want to find the highest salary over here, I'll use what I call the max. All right. If I want to find the lowest salary, I'll use what we call the mean. All right. If I want to find the average of all of these items, I'll use what I call the average. If I want to find the total rows, okay, how many transactions we have. I can use what we call the count, or we also have one that we call the distinct count. All right, and so let's have this in mind. Now let's look at this. So it says calculate performed at query time. So let's understand one thing. The calculated columns perform row level calculations stored in the data model, while measures are dynamic calculations. All right. So what this is simply trying to say is that with calculated columns, we need to create a new column. Do you understand? And then put in our items. Okay. So we need to create a new column for what we want. All right. And calculated columns normally they take up memory, they take up some of the space or the memory, and so you only use it if it's necessary, if you necessarily have to. All right. Then you use what we call calculated columns. Now, what all this forget the big words, but calculated column is simply where we right click and then we choose new column. All right. So it's going to give us a new column. Okay, and let's say we want to find, so this salary, this is bonus, so now we want to find the total salary, and so we start the column and then we can say, okay, so total column, and then we can put our function here as sum. So we are still talking about sum of the salary column. All right, the salary column, and you can say multiply by the sum of bonus. All right, and then we enter. Oh, excuse me. Now, so calculated column. Excuse me, sorry about that. So here we can have the salary, all right, and then multiply by the bonus. Sorry about that, right? And then we can have, so these items in the column, okay? And so this is what we call the calculated column, right? So if you remember in one of my videos where we had to find the age bracket, we use what we call the calculated column, and then we use the if function. Okay, and we said that, so if the age is between this and this, then this, else this. It's in one of my videos. All right, and so this is what calculated columns is all about. This is where you start a new column and then you put in your DAX function. Don't worry with the DAX, just chill. And so we start a new column and then we put in our DAX function. All right. However, with measures a little different. So let's assume that we want to find the total salary. Okay, we want to find the total salary, and we don't want a calculated column. So the measure helps us to just find the total salary straight ahead. All right, without starting a new column or anything. So we right click and then we go to new measure. All right, and then once we go to new measure, it also pops up here. We are going to say, all right, so total salary, and then now we can use our sum this salary. All right, and so once we start typing it, Power BI is going to come up with what you want, and then you are going to close the bracket and go to hit enter, and now you realize that it's showing here as total salary. So now this becomes the total salary. All right, so this is our total salary. Okay? And then here now we have, and then we have this, right? That's our total salary. So that's the difference between the calculated columns and then the measures. When you're using it in your activities, the calculated columns will create a column and it will save that column in your data set. Whereas with measures, you don't necessarily need to create a column. You only need to put in the function, the DAX function, exactly. And then you are going to get your answer. So that doesn't take any memory, doesn't take any memory space or whatever that you call it. All right. I hope this understood. If you have any questions, kindly leave it in the comment section below. and I'll look at it. And if I need to make a whole video on that, I will do that. All right. So now, we are starting off with the sum function. And just as I said, these aggregate functions I use to sum up, or I use on things that are numerical. So you can use sum, average, things like first name, geography, and department. It wouldn't work, right? You use it on things that you can actually aggregate. So some function is used on items or columns that gives you the opportunity to aggregate. All right, and so you can sum the age, you can sum bonus, and one thing that you can use to sum to know whether you have the opportunity to sum or not. You realize that it has a zigzag signs. So this tells you that, oh, this particular columns you can actually sum them up. All right, it tells you that you can sum them up, but these ones don't have them. So these ones are text, so you can't sum text, just like we did the other time in one of our videos. You can't sum text. All right, and so if you want to be able to sum the text, then you probably need to look at the data type or something. And so sometimes you realize that salary is in text, and that is why it's important to do your data cleaning properly, so that you can change all the text to numerical. Because if your salary is in text, even when you come here, it wouldn't give you the opportunity to sum it up or to average it. All right. And so the sum function, the average function, in fact, the whole aggregate function over here will help you, or is used to make aggregations, all right, based on that column that you are working with. And so let's start off by seeing how this works. So we did one example with the salary, and we are doing it again. So you go to your table name, you click on new measures, all right. And once you click on new measures, you are going to get this box, right? This is the section that helps you to write your DAX functions, okay? So it helps you to write your DAX functions. All right, so let's respond now. It helps you to, and this particular thing that we have here is the title of your DAX function. So assume you want to find the average of your salary, you want to find the total salary, you want to find the minimum salary or the maximum salary. You just write the heading here. All right. So assume you want to find the maximum salary. All right. So what we can do is click on max, or we say maximum salary. All right. And the function to use is maximum, the highest. So we use what we call max. All right. So once you click on max, it's going to come. You click on it, and then what you do is that you start typing what you want. So salary. We are looking at salary. If you want to look at age, you start typing age. So the max age, and then you are going to see age with the name of your data set. So the data set is saved as sheet 1. And so keep that in mind. Don't just choose any age, not anything, but choose the one that is in your sheet. All right, so this is sheet 1. You can have yours as data analytics tutorial sheet, whatever, however you saved it. All right, so sheet 1, age, this is what I'm looking for. And then you can see it's showing us over. It says max the column name or the scalar 1. So the column name is what we are choosing, which is the age. So we click on age, so sheet age, and then we close the bracket, right? And then once you close the bracket, you click on enter, and then it's going to show you. So this is the maximum. Let me take this up a little bit. All right. So maximum salary. This is what we just created. And so when we click on this, it comes. So we can use what we call the card to show. So the maximum salary, that is the highest salary, is what is 64. And then if we come here to the age column, you realize that indeed the highest age is 64. All right. So that's with the age. Now let's look at min. So assuming, all right, we don't want the maximum, we want the minimum. All right. So likewise, what we are going to do is we are going to say minimum salary, and then we are going to, or minimum age, excuse me. So minimum age, we are going to say min, we are going to say age. All right. We are going to say age. We are going to close this bracket. We are going to hit an enter. All right, and it's going to change it. So it's going to show us the minimum age. When we come here, we look, realize that the minimum age is actually 10. Right? Okay, so that is that for the min and max. So now let's say we want to look at the average of the ages. All right. So again, we can click on this. We say average age. Average age. All right. So average age also we have what we call average. So you just click on average, so they are similar, and then you say age. All right. So this is how you use the aggregate functions. So you enter, and it's going to show you the average age to be 30. Right now, let's say we want to look at our total bonus. All right, so we have bonus, and now you see there's this exact sign. It means we can actually perform aggregation on this. So we can't perform aggregation on this because it doesn't have the zigzag, but we can do that for this. All right, so let's say we want to find the total bonus, or our total bonus. All right, so we say total bonus will be equal to sum, because we are summing up the bonus column. You understand? We're summing up the bonus column. So it's going to be sum of the bonus, all right, to get our total bonus. All right. So you are going to say sum. We are going to again start typing our bonus, and it's going to show bonus. So if the column is not in the sheet, it's not going to show unless the column is actually in the sheet. Do you understand? All right. And then we click on enter, and that's going to show us that the sum of the bonus, the sum of all of this, all right, it's actually what? It's actually 16,000, so 16k. All right, so that is it for the aggregate functions, the basic aggregate function, that is sum, average, min and max. Then there's another one that we call the count distinct, and then counter. All right, so let's start with the count. So with a count, what I use the count for personally is to count the number of rows. So this row, so this is my row. So this from 1 to 20, this is the number of rows. All right, the number of rows. So sometimes you can have the number of rows exceeding 20. I'm going into the hundreds and the thousands, and you're not sure. So you want to know how many rows you are working with. All right, and so the count will help you to do that. So you can say, all right, I want to count the number of rows. All right, and normally with the count, you use a count with unique a column with unique values. All right, there should be a particular column with unique values. All right, so ID or something, something unique that you can actually count. All right, and so I use a count, and I say, okay, I'm counting for the ID column. All right, counting the ID. I want to know the total rows. All right, and so I click on enter, and it's going to show 20 exactly. So this is what we have from 1 to 20. So the ID is showing that we have 1 to 20, and so assuming you're having 1 to 1,000, it's going to show that, okay, our count rows. So you can say count rows. All right, count rows, and that will be our count rows is 20, and it's going to, so what about this one that you make is going to be shown here. So once we're done with count, maybe so I'm done with count, I want to move on to my next, this one. So what I can simply do is come back to sheet, click on this, go to measures. All right, and then it will start a new one. Okay, and then so let's say I want to count distinct items. I want to count the distinct items in here. All right, so this first name and last name column, so they are, I want to count the distinct names that are in here, so no repetitions. All right, just distinct these ones. All right, distinct names. And so what I can do is that I will put this on measure, and we'll say, okay, distinct names, so number of names, distinct name. So how many distinct names do we have there? And I'm going to say distinct count, and I'm going to say first name, and then once I click on that, so select it, and then it's going to show me that we have 20 distinct names. All right, so 20 distinct names, so that's what we have. All right, okay, Now let's move on to SumX, CountX, and AverageX, and how they function or how they work. All right. And so, what the SumX or the AverageX does is that it's not going to like where we have the total column, we have to put the total column to find the sum of this and this to be this. And so now let's check for the total column. Yeah, so let's check for the total column. So this particular column, let's say we want to find the total amount that was found in there, alright? And so we are going to use what we call the sum again because we are just summing that total column. Okay. So sum total column, right? We are going to say now the sum of total column. So this like so, and then we are going to have the sum of total column. Okay. So we select this, and I'm going to use a card to show us the total. So this is the total, right? All right. So this is the sum of total column. But there are instances whereby you don't want to save or you don't want to create this. All right. You just want to know the sum of these columns and then this column. All right. You want to know the product of this column and this column. All right. Then just leave it at that without creating a new column for it. All right. And so what we can use what we call the SumX. And that is why we have the SumX. So this SumX. So it sums two columns without you necessarily having to start a new column or create a calculated column. All right. Do you understand? All right. And so how do we do this? So again, we come here and we say new measure. So we don't use a calculated column. Now we use a measure because we are using the SumX. All right. And so we are going to say total column. But this we are saying total column 2. All right. And we are using what we call the SumX to see if we can get the same result. All right. And so we are going to type SumX. And then how do we get the total column? We got it from multiplying the total salary by the bonus. All right. By total salary or salary by the bonus. So that's how we derive this particular figure, the sum total. All right. So again, you're going to say salary. Oh, sorry. It's asking for table name. So you're going to say sheet. All right. So sheet. So that is our table name over here. So sheet. Right. And now what is the expression? Now the expression is salary, which is this salary multiplied by our bonus. And now we can close the bracket like so and hit an enter. All right. So this is total column 2. Now let's see how much we have. Column again. And so you can see that this is showing the same amount as what we had for using the calculated column. All right. And so the SumX, the AverageX, the CountX, all right, the MinX, those things you use them when you don't want to create a calculated column like so. So you don't want to create a calculated column for it. You just want to multiply and then get the totals, and then you move on without taking a lot of space or going through the trouble of creating a calculated column. All right. And so yes, this is going to be the end of the session for today. In our next one, I'll probably look at if and otherwise. I hope you enjoyed today's lessons, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.